Okay, good day YouTube. Today we're going to talk about some of the big changes coming up in the impending horizon for ESO 2025. The developers have come up with some rather shocking headline news that they will no longer be doing yearly annual chapters or DLCs as we've come to know it. So your gold roads, your high isles, that will be a thing of the past. They will replace it with seasonal pass. What are the implications for the game and how did the community react to this? We're going to cover this in a little bit, but let me narrate to you verbatim what the ZeniMax developers have said so that we have a context of what is happening. Okay, so introducing seasons. Over the course of 2025, we will be moving more towards a seasonal content model and away from launching massive content updates once a year, as we did with chapters. We will be talking much more about this in the future, but in 2025, expect to see named seasons of 3 or 6 months duration with a mix of themed story content, events, store items, dungeons, and more. 2025 will be a mix of old and new as we move the development team towards creating smaller, bite-sized pieces of content. We will still have some larger items that we've been working for over a year, which we'll see at launch as well. Now, freeing up the development team from needing to adhere to a strict annual cycle means we will be able to have teams launch content when it's ready throughout the year and not work to a date in June. This will let us focus on a greater variety of content spread over the year. This supports the new seasons model and will enable us to release content updates, fixes, and systems in a more efficient manner. So what do you think about this? I think like all things, we can either look at it in a positive rose-tinted way or we can look at it through the cynical lens. I think I will cover both, focusing on one at a time so there's more clarity in how we analyze and crystallize the situation. Okay, so let's talk about the positive things and how this may actually end up to be a good thing. Pulling resources away from creating a chapter could mean that ZOS is finally focusing on solving some of the bugs and problems that we've been facing in the rest of the zone, in the rest of the game. After a while when the chapter's been released, they kind of become a bit repetitive and formulaic. Big story comes out, there's a mythic that you have to get, and then there's probably some new dungeon and new trials coming in. You pay some good money to get to enjoy this new zone, new art style, so on and so forth. And after the 4th or 5th chapter, everything starts to feel a little bit similar. And throughout this entire process, problems keep surfacing in some of the older zones, some of the older gameplay mechanics, and it's never been resolved. So taking resource away to fix that, I think could be good. ZOS have actually come out to say specifically that they want to focus on fixing Cyrodiil, and for the longest time we've all been complaining about it, right? They gave us some idea that conceptually they want to limit the skills that you use in Cyrodiil to a consistent palette, so everybody has the same set of skills that you use to fight and PvP in Cyrodiil. And the only difference that will determine and differentiate between the winners and losers really will be down to your muscle memory and your mortal skills. So possibly this could take away some of the performance lag and the bugs that happen when you have a big ball group coming in and your skills cannot fire off, right? I also hope that in Imperial City and in Battlegrounds they still keep the same old format. So if you miss using your Necromancer or your Nightblade skills, you can go to Imperial City. I think this is a win-win for all. So there will be greater traffic coming into the Imperial City, especially the sewers, and people can go to Cyrodiil hopefully for a better performance, a better PvP experience without all the lags and stuff, and it can be something different, right? Product differentiation is good. So yeah, looking forward to this if it materializes. Also, they mentioned about Craig Lawn, they're going to be introducing more difficult tasks and challenges for us to do there, as well as the overland zones. They're going to be like making some of these quests and monsters a little bit more challenging than before lah. As you know, currently we can take out overland monsters and everything just solo, and without much challenge it starts to become really boring after a while. So introducing new stuff in the older zones, I think could be quite promising. Heck, they can even, just for idea's sake, right, look into Infinity Archives, and for a seasonal pass, introduce some kind of PvP activity or event, right, that can make all of us go into Infinity Archive to start to fight against each other, as well as to fight all the never-ending hordes and the mobs at the same time. At the top of the leadership board the top 20 can win some exclusive loot or cosmetics at the end of the season. Ideas like that I think can be quite interesting. ZOS have also come out to say that whatever that's been introduced in the seasonal pass, they will stay permanently as content, they will not be removed away, so you do not need to have your FOMO thing going on, fear of missing out. You come back at a later date, you will still be able to get the content and the gear and whatever that has been ongoing before. I think this suits the community just fine. Also, maybe when they go back to some of the older zones, they can introduce newer quest lines, newer stories, but based on the older zones, or that requires you to travel from zone to zone in order to complete a certain particular quest in a particular season. I think PvE members will like this. There are a lot of things that needs to be fixed, and hopefully that, ZOS gets about to doing it. For example, PvP merchants in Cyrodiil should be selling potions and poison that is more pertinent and more important for PvP. As well as the golden vendor, you should be selling gold jewelry at a much cheaper price now, considering it's a lot easier to upgrade them currently at the moment. So overall, yeah, this is the rose-tinted lens and microphone speaking lah. But members of the community are cynical and negative for a reason. ZOS does not have a good track record when it comes to delivering what they promise. Look at the current battlegrounds, right? So you can tell that most of the Reddit forums, they are very negative. And so here comes the cynical lens lah. Everybody just starts to talk about this season pass being Destiny 2 Mark II, right? So Destiny 2, as we know, have embarked on the seasonal pass kind of model, and the game has gone south after that because the content dries up. The developers no longer invest enough manpower into the game to make good content, so it becomes more and more scarce and bare bones and comes in drips and drabs. At the same time, the developers are probably pushed on to other projects which can earn more money for the studio itself. So people are saying that this is sort of like the start of the end for ESO. That going into seasonal pass and doing away with the yearly chapters, the big chapters, just means that we are kind of going into a maintenance mode where you just stick to the status quo, introduce some new little perks once in a while, minimal effort just to get maximum monetization. What do you think about it? I think we can really only judge the intention and the execution after 2025, when the first seasonal pass comes over, and then we take a look at both the quality as well as the quantity of the amount of content that ZOS decides to push out. If it's good, then fine and dandy, maybe this is the model that we need to go ahead, and they will push a big chapter in maybe a few years time when they finish fixing all the stuff in the various zones. But if the things that come out are lackluster, then we kind of know, yeah, this game is probably on its last legs, and the board members and the developers are no longer keen in making this game any greater than what it currently is. I think in general, the community is worried about the FOMO aspect, where people like to play ESO because they can play it and then don't play it for a long period of time and then come back to the game to discover that nothing much has changed and it's still very leisurely and very relaxed. They can then go on to complete whatever task they need to do in their absence previously. But with this season pass, people are worried that they are missing out on certain loot, certain cosmetics, certain gear set that would just disappear forever once the season is over. This predatory kind of monetization practice has been milked to the max with a lot of other games, and Destiny 2 is just one of them. RuneScape is another one that comes to mind. So naturally, I think the community is worried that ESO might go down this particular track because maybe their chapters are not selling as well anymore, and the NBA guy in suits in the boardroom are now coming up with new dirty ways to milk you of your cash. People are already starting to say this is the beginning of the end, but like I said, hold your horses. Let's take a look and see if problems are fixed. If Cyrodiil is fixed, then that is a W for me in my book, right? I would want to go back to Cyrodiil to have a good PvP performance, which I've not experienced since 5 years ago. So what do you think? Leave your comments below. Is 2025 going to be the final straw that breaks the donkey's back? We shall see. Please like, subscribe if you have not. I see you in the next video. Goodbye and thanks.